F, the commission shall hold unselected applications in reserve to offer a license to the next highest scoring applicant if the highest scoring applicant fails to pay the license fee in accordance with section 10. And I think that's what you were talking about, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When all available licenses within each pool have been issued, the commission shall remove all unselected applications from its list of reserved applications in that pool and notify all applicants. And I guess here you could say if you don't get an application from a certain part of the state, and you have to address the need based on a needs assessment, we may have to go back and look. You're not going to give a non-qualified applicant a facility if they're not qualified, no matter where they are.
Even if they qualify with a high score, but there's someone already in the district, there's not another one there, we can ask them, do they have the ability to find property and do it in this area that Arkansas needs? And I think that would be another option.
The only problem is at some point where we've already required them to do a business plan, which includes location, how are they gonna, are they gonna, do they own it, do they rent it, security plans, all that sort of stuff. So it seems problematic at a certain point to say, okay, we didn't get anybody in the southeast quadrant. Now I'm gonna go back to the next highest scoring person, and they were the highest scoring person based on their plan that they presented. So now we've almost got to come back and say, hey, all of you who are minimally qualified, if you want to go for, this quadrant, which didn't have anybody apply, they'd almost have to all go find out, can they, where would they lease or where would they go?
I don't think we would take any minimal qualified applications. I mean, we just wouldn't have a...
Well, that's what I'm talking about under section 5. They would have already shown that they were somewhat minimally qualified. But then in the merit section, which we will have scored them on, they're now going to, part of what we're asking for in the merit section is, where are you going to be? What's your security plan? Some of those I see being, those are location specific, because you've got to say, here's the building, and this is how the building's set up, so here's my security plan. Those don't necessarily transfer one-to-one outside of what they've already proposed.
I would be shocked if we don't get a solid proposal from each of these ratings. And I think if we don't, then we can cross that bridge. But I would be shocked if we don't get a qualified applicant from every one of those health regions.
I think the one thing that I have trouble with is we're supposed to give the rules out, and if that's the way we're going to do it, I think we've got to give the rules in advance, because assuming that we have somebody from all 5 regions may be an assumption that we don't know, because I'm sure somebody would say
We have assumption that we have one from plus the central part of the state. We may not have an applicant from the central part of the state.
And we might not, but again, that's when we're all assuming it's the underserved regions, and it may not be.
No, we're not assuming that. We're saying we wanted the opportunity open to the entire state. Everyone knows that the central part and the northwest part of the state has most of the resources. It's just the way life is in Arkansas. But we're hoping by this being distributed equally, at least the 5 first applicants, that we bring some equality to the situation. Not saying that we're going to take subpar applications because of that. We may not get a good application from a part of the state, and we may, but we don't know that.
Madam Chair, may I, on this topic, are you, and this may be something to think about, if you keep it, you may want to set a minimum score, because to the point of having the dividing the applications or the licenses by region, if you did just get one in one region of the state, but it was a really poor application, but they met all the criteria, but they scored so low. So if you keep it this way, you may want to think about putting in a threshold score in the merit system. Because if you don't, you can't come back, I think, to Commissioner Story's point to say, well, you had everything, but your score was so low, we don't want to give it to you now. Because you will get a lawsuit. So think about building that in if you keep it. It just may be that we didn't get an applicant that met the threshold score on the merit system to warrant the issuance of a permit.
Do we go back and consider allowing a company, knowing you can hold one cultivation license? However, you may have an applicant that has the opportunity to have their facility in multiple districts, apply in multiple districts. Right now, what the discussion was earlier was that you need to pick one district and you need to apply, and you could be the second best in that district and you don't get a permit. But if you so choose, you could choose multiple districts and you may be number one, number two in one district and number one in another. And they're doing as they choose. They can still only have one cultivation facility permit, but if they choose to submit two for two different regions, do we want to penalize them for that?